Hello, fellow humans, and welcome to Great News for the Planet this week. This is a J Mac Mingo production. Hello, folks, and welcome to the show where we skip the doom and gloom and focus on the good. Because let's be honest, your feed probably has enough bad news already. Here, we celebrate real progress, real wins, and real animals doing real cool stuff with zero politics, zero cynicism, and 100% optimism. So let's dive into 6 stories that prove the planet still knows how to surprise us and maybe even make us a little proud. Story number 1. Sea turtles make a splashing comeback. The green sea turtle, those graceful, flipper-powered ocean travelers, just pulled off one of the best comeback stories in nature. After decades of being endangered, they've officially been upgraded to least concern. That's basically Mother Nature's version of, I'm doing great, thanks for asking. For years, conservationists protected nesting beaches, cracked down on poaching, and reduced plastic waste in key habitats. And it worked. Nesting numbers are way up across Florida, Costa Rica, and the Galapagos. One scientist even called it the payoff of patience, since sea turtles can take 20 years to reach adulthood. So yeah, it took time, but now they're thriving again. Proof that when humans take their foot off the gas and give nature a break, it'll race right past our expectations. Now on to story number 2. The Bay Scallops return home to Virginia. Let's talk scallops. Specifically the legendary Bay Scallops that once filled Virginia's coastal waters. Back in the 1930s, they vanished after disease and habitat loss destroyed the eelgrass meadows they called home. Fast forward to today, they're finally back. Thanks to massive restoration efforts, tens of thousands of scallops have been reintroduced, and the eelgrass beds are once again thriving. These tiny creatures are more than seafood, they're ecosystem engineers. A single scallop can filter gallons of water a day, keeping the bays crystal clear. Locals are thrilled. The water's cleaner and the coastline's alive again. It's one of those rare stories where science, community, and seafood, yum, all win. And that's a pretty tasty combination. Now we're on to story 3. The Bali starling sings again. Now for something truly beautiful and feathered. On the island of Bali, a tiny white bird with electric blue eye patches is having a second act that could bring tears to ornithologists' eyes. The Bali starling once had fewer than 20 left in the wild. Poaching had nearly erased them entirely. But instead of outside organizations taking over, local villagers led the comeback themselves. They revived Awig, ancient Balinese community laws, to make poaching a serious offense, and declared parts of their forests sacred again. It worked. Slowly the birds returned, their songs echoing through areas that had been silent for years. Today the Bali starling population is growing, thanks to the people who live closest to them. It's a beautiful reminder that the best conservation isn't forced from the top down, it's grown from the ground up. Story 4, and it's a big win for the oceans, beating microplastics one laundry load at a time. Alright, time to talk laundry. And no, not to pile on your chair, even though that should be taken care of. Every time we wash our clothes, especially synthetics, thousands of tiny plastic fibers sneak into the water system and eventually end up in the ocean. That's bad news. The good news? A small company in Cornwall, England, called Cleaner Seas Group, found a fix. They created a filter system that traps microfibers before they ever leave the washing machine, then recycles them into usable materials like industrial plastics. It's simple, affordable, and surprisingly effective. They estimate that if this system were adopted widely, it could stop more than 80 tons of microplastics a year from reaching the sea. That's millions of fish, and probably a few mermaids who'll thank us later. Saving the planet, one spin cycle at a time. On to story 5, the Rio Grande. Cleanup brings people together. Next, Let's travel to the U.S.-Mexico border, where one of North America's most iconic rivers, the Rio Grande, is finally getting the love it deserves. For years, trash and plastic pollution have choked its waters, but now a new bi-nation project is making waves. Literally. Engineers and volunteers installed floating barriers that catch garbage before it drifts downstream, and the results have been incredible. In the first few weeks, they pulled out thousands of pounds of trash, everything from bottles to tires, somehow a shopping cart. Yeah, those things are everywhere. But what makes this story special isn't just the cleanup, it's the cooperation. Communities on both sides of the border are working together, proving that nature doesn't care about lines on a map, only clean water and teamwork. If two nations can unite over a river, maybe there's hope for the rest of us too. Story 6 brings us to the great state of Ohio, with hellbenders on the rise again. Finally, let's meet the most unlikely hero of the week, the hellbender salamander. Yeah, that's his real name, also known as snot otters. So take your pick which one you'd prefer to be called. I guess lasagna lizards or old slippery grandpas are in the mix as well. These giant, wrinkly amphibians have been disappearing for decades due to population and habitat loss. But in Ohio, scientists have been on a mission. Over 10 years, they restored rivers, built breeding programs, we're not going to ask, and released thousands of young hellbenders back into clean waterways. And guess what? It worked. They're thriving again. Hellbenders are like living water quality tests. If they're happy, the river's healthy. They're slimy, strange, and straight up essential. So next time you hear someone say, nothing good ever happens in Ohio, tell them about the salamanders that brought a river back to life. And that's your great news for the planet this week. From sea turtles to salamanders, local heroes to global efforts, the planet had a great week. And it's nice to be reminded that not every headline needs to be a facepalm. If you enjoyed this dose of hope, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little environmental optimism in their day. I'm J Mac Mingo, reminding you, good news grows when we give it attention. See you next week, and until then, keep rooting for the planet.